Hello, everybody. Welcome back to video 29 in this series. I'm preparing lecture notes for a summer camp, uh, um showing high schoolers how to make some basics of game dev and introducing them to that, trying to fit a lot in. And I wanted to practice my lectures beforehand and decided to not delete the videos after I edit my lecture notes. And I just share them on YouTube. So in the previous video, we were setting up our cutscene. Oh, whoops. Uh, So our character's here, some aliens invade, and the character's gonna run around and beat them up with the stick. So we introducing our storyline with the cutscene here. And so it's a lot like we were doing earlier when we put our level together, except that we don't have to worry about physics and control and all that. We're just running a few animations. So thus far, if I run this, we see our character standing around fishing, and then he'll look up and the um, notice some alien ship's coming in. That he's going to look up, and then the camera's going to slowly pan up, see the alien ship, and pan back down, and then the character's going to look at the stick, and then that's going to lead into uh, our game storyline. So, um, if you watched the last video, hopefully you noticed a big pattern between our control timer, a pattern starting to show up quickly between our control timers. So when the ready method at the start of the thing runs, we run our fishing timer. And when that finishes, we jump over to the notice ship timer, at which point we get rid of the fishing timer and then run through, switch to turn on that animation. And when, uh, after 3 seconds have passed, we'll run to this back to character thing. Or camera panning, that might be a better name for it. Camera panning, because a couple things are going to happen here. And back to the character is just part of it. Camera panning. So first thing we need to do is going to be a lot like this. Hopefully you realize that. But this one needs broken up a little bit because it's not purely animation. So we'll remove the notice ship timer. And then what we need to do is pan the camera up, pan the camera down. And when we're finished with that, then we go back to we'll run the notice the stick animation. And then that will be, I'll make a method called notice stick. So when that timer runs for 3 seconds or however long, it'll run to our other animation. Actually, I think this is going to be in a selection structure. So this will get to the end of cutscene, which I will come down here and create that function. The keyword func, the name of the method, and for now, just pass on that. Well, actually, can copy and paste all of this because that's just going to be a timeout at the end with our end timer. Paste, 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 and then it's going to call a next scene method. Which we will get to in a moment because we haven't talked about how to do that. But we need to pan the camera up and back down, and that's some actual movement. So that's going to need to happen in our process thing. So if we go over to our scene and kind of look at things, let me select the camera. If we go in preview, we're looking there. And The spaceship's way up there, so what happens if we just rotate around this one axis? That was too far. Okay, let's undo that, get back to the original position. And if I rotate a little on the Z and preview it, that'll work. So what is our angle here? I'm going to make a note of these angles, 5.5, 62.5, and negative 25.9. And I'm going to jot those down on a piece of paper real quick. I'll pause the video while I grab some paper and jot those down. Actually, I just realized I don't need to jot them down on paper because it's just this one number. We only rotate it on the Z-axis. So negative 25.9. I'll make a note in the script. Camera Z to negative 29.5 degrees. And if we come back over here, that was the last thing I did. So if I hit undo, it should go back to the original position. Yeah. So the original position is negative 0.7. Camera Z from negative 0.7 to negative 29.5. So we need to make that movement at a specific time. And how will we know what that time is? What I was thinking is right here, we can find a Boolean, and we'll set a global Boolean, and then we'll set it true. The camera will pan up. Then we'll pan the camera back down. And when it gets back down, then we'll do that. So maybe not even a Boolean, a string might work. We'll check the state of a string or a number. So var camera state, I'll make that an integer. That'll be a nice easy one to keep track of. And we'll start in state 0. So when we get down here, it'll be in state 0. So here we can change it to 1. Change camera state to 1. We'll run through here and we get to 29.5 degrees. Change camera state to 2. And at camera state 2, back to negative 0.7 degrees. And then change the camera state to 3. And we'll come down here and set that as a condition here. If camera state is 3, then we'll do all of this stuff. So that's the logic, some logic that should work. So we can check this here. So every frame of the game we'll check to see if that camera state is equal to 1. And if it is, then we will take our rotate our camera. So we'll need a reference to that. So again, I'll click and hold Control and drag that in. And it's called Camera 3D, which let me rename that. So I'm going to rename it Camera and then click and drag in. Now it's just called Camera. So if camera state is equal to 1, then camera.rotation.z equals whatever it was. There's a built-in method to do this, but since this is the way we saw in the earlier video, just the the way you would have seen in an introductory programming course. I'll just keep doing it this way. Subtracts from 0.7 to negative 29.5. I want to move just a little bit. 0.1. Oh, almost. We want to do degrees to radians and negative 0.1. Actually, I'll do 3 degrees every second times delta. And if the camera dot rotation dot z ends up bigger than smaller than negative 29.5, then we want to set our camera state equal to 2. So we can check that. So otherwise, if camera state is equal to 2, then we want to go back down. Those don't both need to be negative. I'll just say that it's 3 degrees, and then we'll subtract there and add here. And if camera dot rotation dot z is less than or equal to, I should add that, or equal to. No, it'll be greater than or equal to negative 0.7. So somewhere near our original spot, which if it's moving down at the same speed it moves up over the course of so many frames, it should end up back at the same spot. Then we want to set the camera state equal to 3. Don't need that pass command anymore. And then we'll come back down here, and if our camera state is equal to 3, then we'll switch to the notice stick animation, which will be this key in the dictionary. And at this point, this is where we'll change the camera state to begin with. So camera state actually, if camera state is equal to 0, then we'll change it to 1. And at that point, it's going to come up here and start doing all of this. And when it gets to the end, we'll check that, call that function again, camera panning. So it'll run through this on the frame, every frame, check this, and well, if it's doing that, camera state's going to be 1. Actually, I can do that here, can't I? We don't need to check it every time. We don't need to check it until we come back down. Why is that highlighted? Oh, camera's spelled wrong. I think that cleared all the error messages. And then it's going to keep checking this, and it'll be busy, and eventually the camera state's going to switch to 3, and then it'll switch to that last animation. And when that last animation runs, it's going to come down here and remove the notice stick timer and set up the end scene to go to the to run that, and that should take another 3 seconds. And then we will just jump to the last scene. So let's give this a trial run and see if all that worked. Hopefully that logic made sense. But notice how it's really just a bunch of timers until we need to move our camera, and then that needs to happen as a regular game process and something to keep track of it so that we know when we're done and then we can move forward with the timers again. So give it a run and see what happened. The character's fishing, and he looks up at the thing. This is where we should be moving. Nice and slow, but I think we could probably move a little bit quicker than that. And that seems to be the wrong axis. Um, so let's go over here and see what went wrong. Okay, so it just took me a moment to see what went wrong. I came back over here and looked at the camera there in the original state and watching these numbers. We grab this axis for rotation and we start rotating around that Z axis. Notice all of our numbers are changing. So it's not just the one. Is that the right spot? That was too far. Undo. Somewhere around there, I think. Yeah. So we'll go up about that high, but all of our numbers change. So I'm going to jot those down on a piece of paper and move all of those instead of just the one. So I'm going to pause the video while I do that. Okay, sorry about that. And since this video was getting long, I just did the debugging with the video paused. But what I did is once I noticed that all of them were moving, I picked a faster speed to cover that distance on the Z that was being measured. And there was another bug here. It would have gone for a whole long time, a long time before it got up to 28 radians. So needed to switch 28 degrees to radians. Just a little bug there. And I moved it to a faster speed, figured out how much time it would take. So it's going about 30 units, so 6 times. And then figured out what would be the number for that much on the Y and that much on the X to do that over 6 seconds. I guess is what it is. And then for the other one back down, just switched all the signs. And again, that degree to radian bug. So that was working now. If we run that. I guess some of those probably could be like 2-second animations. We go up, notice the aliens coming in to invade. The camera comes back down. Our character notices a stick. And then we go into that a 3-second wait, and then we'll jump to the next scene. So that's the last thing we need to do here is load in our other scene, which logically that is going to be different in all our game engines. So it's another one that's just going to be the syntax. So I guess for now I'll just show the syntax for it in Godot, which is just get tree, which refers to our hierarchy, or actually all of the files involved. And then we can call this change scene to file. And then the file we want is the file that has our level, level 1. And notice if I select it over here in the file system, it's right here to copy and paste over. And just add some quote marks to turn it into a string. So that's all we need to do to get to the next scene. So let's recap all that. So we set all our objects up, kind of mimic the scene, where they're going to be. The animations are built into the model, except for the camera panning. So we went over to the script and set up a bunch of timers. The first timer, he's standing there fishing. Then he notices the ship. When that runs, it removes that timer and goes up to the other time, goes to the camera panning one. And when that happens, the camera state starts changing, which is a frame by frame thing. It slowly pans up, then it changes state, slowly pans down, and there was kind of a bug there at first because I tried to just move the Z and had to come back and find the distance. Apparently, all three axes were rotating when I did that rotation in the viewport. So I had to find the distance all of them were moving, and the condition was based off the Z. Make sure you switch degrees to radians because for most of us, it's easier to think about degrees than to think about radians, but radians are better for calculations. So that's what we want to actually do, have the computer working with. And then we'll work with the degrees and just make sure you convert them every time. So pans up, pans back down, then changes the camera state to the point that it will finally launch the next timer, where the character looks down, notices the stick, waits for 3 more seconds again, and then loads the next scene. So now that should work. The whole cutscene to introduce the story of our game, and then we'll be ready for the actual action gameplay where we run around and the character beats up aliens with that stick he picks up down by the river. Uh, Hopefully, kind of a fun game. I think there's a lot of spots there for comic relief. If this game goes further, I'll probably set it up with a bunch of really fancy animations. There we go. I'll set it up with a bunch of really fancy animations uh, that look like they would belong in the nicest fighting games and seem way out of place here for a little comic relief. But um, could also do that with items in his home. So like have the character's home and he keeps running back home and grabbing different things, or possibly a spot for even a paywall where the game's free and people pay $1 for different objects they can beat up the aliens with, like a frying pan or a rubber chicken and things like that. And hopefully be somewhat of an enjoyable game. But now we're ready to actually um, set up the combat for our game and then a boss scene. And I think that'll take us up to the bare minimum to call a game. So I'll see you in the next video. Hope you found this helpful.